Well, let's get started then. So, good afternoon now, I guess. So, my name is Nate Tubbs with Together Chicago and Chicagoland United in Prayer, and I help to organize Building Blocks of Peace. So, grateful that you took the time to be here today. Did everybody get a lunch as well? Because I think they're taking the extra boxes out, if you did it. So, okay. Thanks for joining us. So I will do a brief recap of what we talked about in parts 1 and 2. I might need to borrow one of those sheets I just gave out to you all. Can I borrow those? Okay. So just so I can point things out on here. Oh, okay. I'll bring it back in just a second. All right, so this workshop is called How to Organizing Toolbox. So the goal is that we can all grow our skills and add tools to our toolbox for how we organize people towards collective action together. All right, there's many kinds of organizing. Obviously, with Building Blocks of Peace, we're talking about peacemaking. We're talking about community organizing, things like that. But you could apply some of these principles to a lot of different things. But I'm hoping it's applicable for the work that we're doing as far as peacemaking and beyond. So we want to grow our skills and add best practices. So part 1 has some really practical sections and questions here. So number 1, we talked about vision. So we asked the question, what are you organizing people around? Okay, you can organize people around an interest. You could have a knitting club. Oh, we all like to do this thing. Okay, let's get together. You can organize around a place, a geography. Our block club is organized around our block, all right? And you can organize around issues, right? You can organize around safety or whatever the issue is, and you'll gather the people that have that common interest in that issue. So there's different things you can organize people around. The second thing we talked about was who is your audience? Who's your target audience? Who are you trying to reach? If it's your block club, you're not trying to communicate to the next blocks over necessarily, right? If it's an issue area, you want to find other people who care about that issue. So a key question we want to ask is, what is something that you care enough about that you would take action on it? You need a sheet? Okay. No, you're fine. So what is something that you care enough about that you're willing to take action on it? Notice that in that question, we're not just asking, what is something you care about? Because if you're just thinking about what do people care about, you'll get a lot of opinions, you'll get a lot of ideas, but you're not necessarily going to garner action together. What do you care enough about that you're willing to take action on is a key question in organizing. The third thing we talked about was goals. What are you trying to achieve? How do you set short-term, intermediate, long-term goals? We talked about communication methods, whether it's word of mouth, flyers, phone calls, email lists, etc., etc. And then we talked about actions. What are the actions that you're calling people to make? What do you actually want them to do? Do you want them to come to meetings? Do you want them to march? Do you want them to pass out flyers? So I know this is really practical stuff, but these questions help us think through, what am I really trying to accomplish here? And then we talked about sustainability. So sustainability is the idea of how frequent and with what rhythm can you continue doing this action? How do you do something that's sustainable and you're not going to burn yourself or other people out, but that keeps people moving forward? You don't want to leave people behind, but you also don't want to be pushing too hard and burning yourself out and things like that. So finding that balance. And then results. How do you measure if you're actually reaching your goals? Is it what people think about this thing? Is there data behind it? Is it surveying? Are there actual metrics? Is it stories, testimonies, those kinds of things? So that's kind of part 1, some of what we talked about in part 1, okay? And then I have a bunch of links on this document to some really good resources. So I hope some of you have been able to take a look at some of those resources. But there's great articles, websites, and books. I brought some books again today. I know some of you borrowed some of my books in the last couple of months, and I hope that you've been able to read them. But these are all books about loving your neighbor, your neighborhood, or understanding your place that you live or work in and how you can be more connected to where you live. All right, that was my recap of part 1. How's that? Is that okay?
Great job.
Okay, part 2, we spoke about 4 modes of change. So how is change done? How does change happen? And there's this little diagram. I'll kind of walk around. You can see the little pictures of the diagram. But it's how does change happen? Does done to you. So some change is done to you. This is when a force or a power or a group comes and does something for your neighborhood. And they didn't really ask you. They didn't really involve you. It wasn't a community-driven thing. It was just this is done to you because we think it's what you need. Okay? That's one way that change happens. It's not, that doesn't build community and trust though, does it? Another way that change happens is change can be done for you. This is kind of a benevolent charity model. Hey, we'll do this for you, and we'll feel really good that we did this, and you're going to benefit, but we did this for you. Don't we look good for doing that, right? I'm not saying charity's bad, but I'm saying that posture has consequences sometimes. It can make people feel a certain way about things. You don't feel involved in that process either sometimes. The next one is with. Change can happen with you. Okay, this feels a little better. This is someone coming alongside you and saying, hey, we want to do this with you. Maybe there's some mutual goals that can be achieved if we do this together. All right, you probably feel a little better about that. There's probably a little more relational trust built there. And then the last mode of change is by. So something that is done by you. Something is done by your block. Something is done by your church or your organization. It's done by the people who are on the ground, who are directly affected by the issue or the challenge that you're facing. This is a form of change that builds power, it builds efficacy. You know, Dr. Governale earlier, she talked about that idea of collective efficacy, right? Collective efficacy is the belief that we can do something together that would make a change. And there's something about belief that's powerful, right? If people believe that, hey, we can actually make a difference here, like, that is so empowering and compelling, and that's what you want. You want people to feel empowered. You want them, it's not just what other people think should be done or what other powers are trying to get, they're trying to check off their checklist or get their agendas done. It's what are you doing by you, for you, okay? So those are the 4 modes of change that we talked about last month, and there's a bunch of other stuff on here about what's called asset-based community development. Asset-based community development is a way of organizing that focuses on strengths and assets. You ask the question, what do we have that we can use? And what does my brother have? And what does my neighbor have? What skills, resources do we have that we can combine together to create a greater good and a greater achievement? There's a lot there that I'm not going to go into right now, but we're going to touch on it a little bit more today. Okay, that's my synopsis of part 2. Does everyone feel caught up now? Okay. You want to see that? Okay, let me just pass it back to our sister over here. You want to take that? Take a picture of that. He's got one of your pages, so here's, yes. Yes, so I can share the digital version of this to all of you. If I can make sure that I have your emails, I know I have your email, but let me make sure you're, that I know you were here today, and I'll make sure to send it to you. Okay, so part 3. Now we're caught up. All right, good. Part 3, I called it Anyone Can Cook. Okay, anyone can cook. You guys remember that movie? It's Ratatouille, right? Okay, what's the story of that movie? Who wants to tell us? What was it all about? Oh, all right, come on. All right. All right. And so what was so shocking about that? Yeah, they were like, this rat can cook this food. Wow. Yeah. It's a very funny movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But that little picture at the top is the rat. What's his name? Remy. Holding his spoon and he's saying, oh, it's good. Okay, so the story that, one of the themes in that movie is anyone can cook, all right? If this rat can cook, anyone can cook. Maybe not Shelley, but but anyone can cook. So I want to make an analogy today. So community organizing people together, is kind of like cooking. Anyone can do it. Okay? Anyone can do it. It's true. Anyone can organize, and everyone can contribute to that vision together. That's such an important idea behind this idea of asset-based community development. Is nobody has the whole picture. Nobody can do it all. Nobody has all the skills, and we need each other. Okay? Because your skills are going to complement my skills, are going to complement her skills, and together we can accomplish more. So anyone who has that vision, we talked about what are you organizing people around? What do people care enough about that they would want to take action together? If they shared that, then you want to ask the question, what are they bringing to the table? What skills are they bringing to this collective effort? So anyone who wants to contribute to that can be like an ingredient in your cooking, okay? Can add some flavor, can add some value to the dish that you're cooking. But here's an important point. You can't cook with ingredients you don't have. Okay? You can't cook with ingredients you don't have. Try to imagine cooking a dinner with the ingredients you don't have, right? If you look up the recipe and you're looking at the recipe and you're like, oh, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. How's it going to go for you? Not too good. Not too good. So you can only cook with what you have. These are your assets. And you can't feed anybody with what you don't have. Okay? You can't feed people out of deficits. So sometimes people will show up for a meeting, a community gathering, an organizing initiative, and the talk can easily go to what we don't have. We don't have this. And we got this problem. And we got this lack over here. We have this deficit, right? I've been there, I know it, but it's true and it's real. And you don't want to minimize that. You want to listen to people. You want to hear that. That's real. The feelings behind that are painful. And we need to acknowledge that and honor that. At the same time, we can't stay there, okay? We can't organize people around our lack of something.
That's right.
We can't say, oh man, our community has this and this problem. Let's all get together and organize around this problem. Now, you can do that a little bit. You can get people together around problems. I tell you, people show up to the beat meetings, Officer Capers, right? When there's a problem, more people show up, right? Or when there's an issue, more people are at that ward meeting with the alderman when there's a problem. So problems can motivate people. They can energize them. But you can't build things out of your problems, okay? You can't construct something. You can't cook that dish with the stuff you don't have and the lack that you have, okay? So I think that's a crucial part of organizing is we have to combat that mentality because it's so easy for meetings to go towards the complaining sessions or the negative things, right? Again, we want to honor that. We want to hear people. We want to listen to people. Part of how you listen to people talk about those things will either build relationship with them or break relationship with them. So it's very important. People want to be heard. But then, what are the ways you can find that we can start to curve that person's mentality towards, hey, what about this? You know, what about what we do have? What about the strength? What about the people that do show up to the meetings? I go to meetings and I host meetings in my community, and people will come to the meetings sometimes and say, I can't believe more people don't come to the meetings. Right?
They do.
But then I'll try to say, well, look who we do have at the meeting. Okay? There's 10 of us here. There's 15 of us here. Okay? So you can complain all day who's not at the meeting. But let's start to say, hey, who is here? And what are the skills that we have? And what can we do together? And it's got to start there. And I believe if you start doing good work that gives people hope, more people are going to want to be a part of that, right? But if it's always on that negativity, on the deficit language, people get discouraged and they don't want to come anymore. All right? I've used this example before. I'm not picking on beat meetings, but I have neighbors who will say, nothing happens when I show up to the beat meeting. Nothing changes. And they get discouraged. They get discouraged that, hey, I did try to show up. I did try to do something, but nothing changed. And we got to help people get past that and start to think about the assets. And you start asking, what ingredients do we have? Okay? What ingredient can you bring to the table? What can you bring? And how can we start cooking together, right? And we're probably missing some things still. It's probably not going to taste that good yet. But we got to start adding our ingredients in. And we're going to have to improvise, okay? So I hope that's a helpful analogy. I think you all can cook. I think you all can organize. And if you focus on strengths and assets and build from there, I think we can, those small wins, those small victories that you have are so important. If you can think of what's the smallest win we can get together. Because the big stuff is so intimidating, right? You're like, how do we change Chicago? And it's so huge and big, and you're like, who can, and our politicians, you're like, people spend all day, every day, and it's all this money, it's all the time trying to change Chicago and these big things. But what about the little thing that you can change, that you can take action on? What are those small little wins that you can start doing? Get that first small win, and then you're like, okay, all right, and then try something a little bit bigger. Okay, it's incremental change, but we have to have those small wins that are going to build hope, and encourage and welcome other people to come add their ingredients to what we're cooking. Okay, all right. So that's the I guess the lesson part of today. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, so a good example, sometimes we don't know the small ways. So like, for example, I went on the neighborhood, and I noticed that on the block, we don't have a lot of lights on at night. Okay, so that was a lot, it's hard. So we suggested, we turn the lights on, and turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Then we got to work after, start off with the one little thing, the little block.
Yeah. That's right on. Absolutely, absolutely. That's a perfect example, right? Yep. Anyone else have something come to mind like that from a small win? Yes.
Just even when you have a win, that we celebrate that win, then we go to the next level, whatever it is, and that other ingredients, those other ingredients that we were missing, may show up.
Yeah.
Or will show up. I'm on the positive.
Yes.
Will
Hopefully,
show up.
yes.
And then you celebrate, you get that win, and then you celebrate that win.
Yes.
And keep it going.
That's right.
And then the momentum starts.
That's good. That's good. Who else? Anyone else thinking of an example? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's asking if you can say it again.
Cooking shows, they have new people come on, and those new people become new ingredients and new recipes to make something.
Yeah. When I watch those cooking shows, I get jealous because they get to walk into that whole area where they can pick anything they want to cook, all the stuff. You're just like, wow, of course you can do that. So, yeah. 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 Yeah, that's a great example. Even the little things like just being friendly to people, waving, saying hi, walking your streets and saying hi to your neighbors. Now you know whose dog that was, right? Because you did that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it means a lot to people when they know that they have people who care around them on their block. One of these books, this one here, talks about two simple things you can do to increase the feeling of safety in your community. One is knowing your neighbors' names, right? Okay, you could do that. You all could do that. And doing positive outdoor activities together. So data, studies show that the more people who know each other's names on a block and are associated together in some ways outdoors, those two things make a difference, okay? And you can do that in very small ways. You can get to know your neighbors. You can spend time outdoors connecting. Simple little things that'll lead to bigger things for sure. Did you have your hand up over here? No. Okay, all right. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time, but I want to do this brainstorming exercise. All right, so there's some questions here. So pick a neighbor, get with one other person, and ask those questions. Take turns answering those questions to each other. We're gonna have to go a little quick, so don't give big speeches, you know. But find a partner and answer those questions to each other. All right? Let's take like 5 minutes. We'll take 5 minutes. All right, now let's all come back together now. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt. All right, I hope that was enough time. It's probably not enough time to answer all those questions, but take care. Gotta run. We will be done in just a couple minutes. I hope that was nice to think about and talk about. Would a couple people want to share what is your answer to that first question? Not all of them, but would anyone want to share what your answer was to that first question?
Yes. So, what you care enough about when people take action on? So, I care enough about bridging the gap for children understanding who they are, like where they come from. As far as like their identity, their background, like being how African Americans, but we don't know the African heritage.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Who else?
I'll answer for my friend, Mr. Phillip, because he's had to.
Oh, okay.
His was social justice, and mine was the children, 3 and 4, 5-year-olds that do not, that the educators, we don't understand the level of trauma and to learn that language.
Yeah. Who else?
To hop off what this young lady said over here in the nice cheetah hat, I also said something like related to youth. I want to find some way that I can connect to like after school programs and like get youth more connected within their community. Like I want them to have the opportunities that I've had growing up. So like learning how to invest or learning about like just stuff that children should know about. And
Yeah.
like,
That's great. Thank you. Who else? Yeah. Right.
We were discussing what I cared about, and I was thinking, what is that? But what I care enough about to do something about it is people who live in attached housing should not have to be subject to unwanted cigarette smoke. Because that is one of the main killers of people. We hear all the time about the number of people who get shot and killed, but it is minute compared to the number of people who die every year from cigarette smoke, whether they smoke or not. It's not just the smokers, it's the ones who don't smoke are dying as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be a problem that a lot of people are interested in solving, but I've been looking for ways to try.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Someone from this table over here? Anyone? No? Okay, over here.
Would be like, I like to go outside, and when I do, I can see like all the cooking up the grass.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, that was good.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, Shelley.
As Chairman believes, I live in Avondale, Logan Square, and I felt really strongly about getting people out and involved in the neighborhood. And so I got involved with my local CAPS office as a facilitator, and then trying to create events and engagements that brought people from the blocks together. We would
Yeah.
smoke outs and walks and things like that. And then after 15 years, yeah, I loved doing it so much, and I was able to finally get a full-time job because I was doing it as a volunteer role as a facilitator. So I was able to finally get my foot in the door and hired, and basically doing the same thing but on a much larger scale. And so now it's trying to get my whole district that I'm working in,
Yeah.
bringing people together.
Yeah.
Because there's, what you were saying earlier about, a lot of people show up to these meetings like, oh, there's nobody here, what am I gonna do? But when you're saying, let's celebrate the small wins,
Yeah.
I was like, well, look who we do have here, let's do what we can with what we have.
Exactly.
And that, I think, really impacted me, especially right now, we have a lot of refugees living in our lobby.
Yeah.
A lot of the districts have refugees living.
Right.
People like, hey, I'm like, well, you know what, let's reach out to who we have and, whatever. So I told people, I'm like, we're doing the best we can with what we have,
Yeah.
and then who's not.
That's right. That's it right there. Do the best you can with what you have. That applies to cooking too, right? When the groceries are being low, do the best you can with what you have, right? So, yeah. So I want to close this out. At the bottom of the sheet, you see that my encouragement to you as you go. I hope that these 3 parts or this one part was helpful to you in some way. And I encourage you to take action, right? So this isn't just about theory and nice things, but use these resources, set personal goals for what you hope to organize. Try and fail and try again. Go with grace for yourself and for others. Walk with humility and always seek the good of your neighbors. If you do those things, you can't go wrong. Do the best of what you have. So thank you for participating. Thanks for joining us. If you want this emailed to you, make sure I have your email. I'll send you the document. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.